Welcome to Selfish Confidence, a place where we can connect and be real about how hard it is to be your damn self. My name is Jess, and my goal is to help you build confidence and belief in yourself to live any life path you want, even if it's unconventional. It's time to flip off societal pressures and connect with women who've also felt on the outside by their life choices. We're here to encourage you to grab the mic and speak your truth. I know it can be scary, but we're in this together. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Selfish Confidence Podcast. It's Jess here, and I have a very special guest who's been, we've been trying to make this happen for a really long time. I have Michaela Robertson here, and I'm just so excited to dive into her story and how she's been transforming her career and her life in some really special ways. So welcome, Michaela. How you doing?
Thank you, Jess. I am so excited to be here. Like you said, I feel like we've been trying to record this podcast. I think we figured it out since Empower Her in September. So
Yeah,
this conversation is long overdue, but when I had you on my podcast, the conversation was so life-giving. So I'm excited to be here in this space. Thank you.
Yeah, and I always truly believe, even though we've been trying to do this for a really long time, it's the right time. It's always the right time when it happens. So there's something that's supposed to be, that we're supposed to talk about right now that we wouldn't have talked about 3 months ago. So I'm just so excited.
That is so true. My life has changed so much in 3 months.
Wild, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh man, yeah. Oh God. I'm the last 6 months, I feel like I've been living in a time illusion. So 6 months ago-ish now, I guess, I decided to leave full-time travel nursing, which was kind of the golden handcuffs of my career. I thought that once I became a travel nurse, I would have made it. And then I made the decision to leave that position, and I started to just build a career by design, trying things on for size within the nursing profession. Within my current position, I am now part-time nursing with full-time benefits, which I tell you what is the bee's knees. To have somebody else pay for my benefits, but only have to be there half of the time is great. And working on building my business and launching and scaling a couple of different things there, growing my podcast, have a lot of exciting things just transforming in my run coaching business. So a lot of energetic freeing has been happening in the last 3 months, I feel like. And so now I'm finally getting in the groove. And I moved to Colorado.
Wild. And I just went to see the mountains in Colorado for the first time when I was there for Empower Her. Magical.
Magical. It changed your life, didn't it?
It sure did. I was I don't know what you guys are into, this weird mountain people. They're all ooh, the mountains. And I was no, it's all about the ocean. But I saw them, okay? They are magical.
They are magical. And my house that I live in right now, we have a rooftop patio that faces the mountains. And it's just when you get home, it just feels like a giant hug because the mountains are literally just screaming at you right now. They're all white capped, and the sunset is beautiful. When the sunrise comes up, it reflects off the mountains onto the lake. Oh, it is such a beautiful place.
A nature lover's dream.
100%. It just, yeah, it regulates your nervous system, man.
Oh, I love it. That's so interesting too. And was travel nursing where you've been since the beginning of your nursing career?
No. So I started in healthcare back in high school. So I've been in healthcare for about 10 years now. Started as a CNA, went to nursing school, worked as a CNA all through nursing school. And then once I graduated nursing school, I started an inpatient surgical nursing job. So in a hospital setting, taking care of patients after surgery. And as soon as I graduated nursing school, it was travel nursing. But you had to get to 2 years of experience before being able to go into travel nursing, just because you're in a lot of different environments. You require different skill set, different thinking, and just be really flexible and adaptable, which is why they want you to have that 2 years. But I was a pandemic nurse, so that 2-year rule was no longer applicable because they were we just need bodies wherever we can get them. So I ended up finessing my way into travel nursing about 1.5 years into my nursing career. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Because I knew you had a path beyond travel nursing. And so I was so curious how that has evolved for you and where you're at now working back in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Part-time, you said. How
Yes.
has that change affected different areas of your life?
Yeah. Well, so when I went to travel nursing, it was very much financial driven, right? It was travel nurses make a lot of money, they get to travel every 3 months. How cool. And then my first travel assignment, I was working only night shift, so 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. was not it. I felt like a shell of a version of myself. And like, it's one of those things where like you connect the dots looking backwards. Like at the time, I was like, well, it looks good on paper. I'm making good money. I'm only working 3 days a week. I get to live in a hotel like a couple days a week and then drive back home. And honestly, I was just the most miserable I'd ever been. Like everything that I thought success was going to be was actually the thing that sucked my soul. And I think after that, I was like, well, if I just like do it, but do it a little bit differently. And like, I think it's just like anything in life, you try it on for size and you decide if it works or if it doesn't. And if it doesn't feel good, you make a tweak. And so I stayed in travel nursing for another 4 or 5 contracts, and contracts are about 3 months each. And I felt like I thought that it was the right fit because I was like, oh, I get to work 3 months and then I would take like 6 or 7 weeks off, which really is like not traditional in a lot of ways. But it was so nice. I went to a trip to Egypt and I went to Punta Cana. And so I was doing all these fun things between my contracts. But then I would go to my contract and I would be like, I just felt like I had no sense of home base. Like I really had no sense of like growing roots in a place because you're only there for 3 months and then you're on to the next. A lot of times the working conditions, and it was just the era of nursing too, I think with COVID and a lot of people struggling with burnout and like really just high staff turnover and a lot of people leaving to go travel. Like it was very multifactorial. But then I ended up coming out to Colorado for a travel nurse assignment. And I really just felt a sense of belonging in my unit and in the state. And it was like I had never really had that feeling before. So I was like, I'm tired of uprooting my life every 3 to 6 months. Like, this is exhausting. Like, everybody thinks it's nice, but like, you have a dog and like, you don't get to really have a sense of routine because it's always changing. And so I think it served me until it didn't.
So interesting because I have lived on that outside too, where everyone looks at your life and they're like, wow, like that looks amazing. So perfect, picture perfect. Like you're living the dream. But then
Mm-hmm.
like only you know on the inside that you're not living the dream. So when that happened for you, you just kind of like clicked and you're like, I'm not living the dream. This sucks.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
I really had to sit with like, what do I want? And I think that can be a really loaded question sometimes of like, what do you want? Especially in a world where the opportunities are endless and you have so many different options. It's like, well, I don't know. And so instead of like just jumping straight to that, I was like, well, what don't I want? Like, what doesn't feel good right now? And I was able to create a laundry list of things that like I did not like. And so I really had to ask myself, like, what does this one shift look like? And I actually remember being on a call with a mentor who I just started working with. And I was like, I keep saying that I'm going to leave full-time nursing to pursue other things that light me up, but I keep moving that deadline. I kept saying, well, after the next assignment, well, after the next assignment. And it was like, but when are you going to be ready? And so I definitely didn't feel ready to make that transition. Like I said, it felt like kind of the golden handcuffs. It was great pay, great schedule sometimes. I was only working like 8 months ish out of the year and taking the other 4 months off. And so like everything on the outside looked good. And I think she was the first person when I said that who like validated that feeling that was like, yes, you can. And actually helped me like make a game plan to get there in terms of like telling my recruiter, hey, quit asking me to sign contracts because I don't want to. Things like planning financially to bridge that gap because I was also getting ready to make a cross country move, and how to have the conversation with people like in my life who were praising me because it looked good on paper and it looked good from the outside. And I knew that they were going to question, like, are you sure? Like, is that really what you want to do? Is that the best choice for you right now? And I think that that's always a really challenging dynamic to navigate. So it was small things and really, like I said, asking myself, what do you want? Like, what is this? What could this look like? And I think that can be really hard when we're preconditioned to do it the way that everybody else does it.
Yeah, and it almost feels like now in this world that we live in, like, so we're all about unconventional lives here. We love about like doing life differently and, shifting your path. But even for what you're doing, again, like, so great, looks so beautiful on paper. Your family's so proud of you because you did the thing and you're the nurse and, all of
Mhm.
those pieces to it. How did you have that conversation with people that you were going to do something totally different? Like, take a whole different, like, U-turn in your life, throw the table and, like, go crazy and, like,
Yeah.
live something that people deem as kind of weird.
Yeah, it's so true. And like it goes so far back. 'Cause I remember when I first started my podcast back in like September of 2020, and my dad was like, and he said this with like so much love. He was like, "Oh, so you're gonna like tell COVID-19 stats? Like other people don't understand." Like he thought it was gonna be like a radio show.
Such
I
an
don't know.
interesting podcast. I'd love to listen to that.
And then like, after that, like he listened to my podcast every single Wednesday on the morning to work. Like he was so supportive. But I think it was that for me, like really primed me that I knew that they weren't going to understand when I decided to make this transition. And so I really had to make that decision myself and be so certain in it myself before I ever told anybody else. So I told like my recruiter, I told my manager that I wanted to stay on as per diem. Like I told the people that like were going to help me with the facilitating of the behind the scenes before I told anybody else in my family that, or even friends or community that I knew was going to have an opinion that could potentially shake me. And so I think coming from that place of authority and like certainty, it's like nobody else can test me because I've already made the decision. Like it's already in progress.
Oh, that's my favorite way to do it too. I'm like, I'm gonna keep it all to me
Uh-huh.
and then make my decision so that you can't influence it. Because I'm so like you can influence me so easily. Like it
Mhm.
just is. You could tell me like cheese is the worst thing in the world, and I'd be like, I believe you. Okay, it
I'm not
just
getting
is.
cheese anymore.
I will never eat cheese again, which would be really hard, but I would do it because you told me. Especially as a nurse, oh man, I'd be done.
Yeah.
So I've done that too. I quit jobs and I never told my family. They found
Hmm.
out from other people, and that really sucked. But I had my choice. Like I made my choice,
Hmm.
and it's easier to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission. So I was like, I quit my job.
Sorry.
I'm
Not
out of here.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then, like when I did tell them, it was just kind of like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like I didn't really leave
Hmm.
space to have a conversation about it. It was just like, and I think too, I've kind of like preconditioned them. I feel like I've made a lot of pivots in my life and I've done a lot of things that maybe are, like you said, unconventional or not the path that they took. And so it's like, oh, what curveball is Michaela gonna throw today? We don't know.
We don't know, but we're ready.
Yeah.
So exciting. When it comes to where you're at in your career now, I know you have a lot of things on the outside of that as well. So it's not
Mhm.
like you're just focused on one thing when it comes to your purpose. You have a whole lot of other things that you're focused on too. Can you tell us a bit about those other things and how they help to just like enhance your life to be all like authentic versions of Michaela?
Yeah. Let's start with what came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
I know, right?
Like,
So many things. Tell us
uh,
like what's your podcast called too? Because you've mentioned a couple times. People are gonna be like, "Where? Where's this at?"
yeah. So that's what I was going to start with, actually.
Love
So
that.
The Built to View podcast is my podcast, and I selfishly started it as a new grad nurse because I was really struggling with finding my identity outside of nursing. I was a nurse during the pandemic. I had just moved 1,000 miles away from my home, and at the time, I was active in social media, network marketing, and building community, and I just wanted other people who understood. I was like, can we have like real conversations about, what we're going through in this transition phase? And I think that there were so many podcasts at the time about like how to memorize the tactical skills, like lab values and medications. And I was like, that's great, but like, what about the human taking care of the humans? Like, how do we care for ourselves? And so that's where Built to Be You came from. And it's funny, like when you start something and you don't realize like the impact that it's going to have. And now I'm like 3 years later, like everything that I do is about coming home to yourself and really finding yourself in the middle of, all the external noise. And so that's where you can find it, Built to Be You. And that really lights me up because I get to connect with so many people like Jess and bring on other people for the podcast. And it's not just for nurses, it's really for women who are looking to become that next level version of themselves. And then as I started doing the podcast and building community there, I was back at that travel nurse assignment on night shift and I was doom scrolling. If you're a nurse, you know what that's like. You're just like lost in the sauce trying to figure out what you're going to do next. And I came across a certification program for nurses that was really about like holistic nursing and really just seeing like patient-centered care. Like that's what they preach to you in nursing school, but they don't actually teach you the skills. Like how do we actually create change? What are the theories behind change? What is the psychology behind change? How do we approach our patients' education in a more holistic way, not just focusing on medications, but like what can they do in their lifestyle? What's the stress impact like? So I found the certification program and I was like, this is me. Like I need to be in this room. So I had taken that certification program and then I became a board certified nurse coach about 8, 9 months ago now. And really all that mean is that I like have my nursing skill set and my nursing brain combined with some theory and knowledge around change and holistic modalities of healing. So I'm still figuring out like what I want to do with that. And I thought that I was going to leave nursing completely in order to pursue like full-time entrepreneurship. But I've actually been able to elevate so many things at the bedside in terms of, just being more intentional with talking to patients and communication and education, not just for them, but for their family too. I now get to facilitate my unit wellness challenge. We have a wellness board, and I get admin time each week to put that together. So, really focusing on the employee well-being, again, putting that nurse at the center of everything that they do. Um, so that's been like really full circle and cool to create. So that's like my little elevation of bedside nursing. And then I also am a run coach and the co-founder of Strides for Strength. And you attract who you are. So a lot of my athletes are nurses and just women who are looking to put themselves first in a life where they have a lot of external demands. And I think a lot of times in nursing, we lose sight of goals for ourselves. So a lot of nurses will be first time half marathoners. I know, Jess, you've ran before, first time marathoners, or simply just somebody who's looking to figure out how to incorporate movement into their routine. And again, like I'm not somebody who's just going to program you runs. Like I want to be in your life. I want to know like how your stress is, how your career is. So I feel like I'm finally in the season where all of my worlds are colliding and it's beautiful.
It sounds just like this beautiful circle where all of them fit so nicely. As a multi-passionate person, like just like seeing you thrive in all of these aspects is just so beautiful. Like watching you run on the internet is also like therapeutic. I'm like, I feel like I'm running with Michaela. Like this is a win for me.
This is a
Thank
win.
you. So can you share a bit too about how you decided to make these small changes instead of just putting everything on fire and just saying like, F this world, F nursing, this is too much. Let's light it on fire, because I think there's often that like, well, it's one or the other. And I love, instead
So
of you
true.
saying one or the other, you said, okay, how can I make this better? What gave
Well,
you the courage to kind of step into that? Like the things that you could make better, and what steps did it take for you to just like figure out what you needed?
yeah, and I think it does really all circle back to that first travel assignment. It was proof that, getting there doesn't mean success. And when at the end of the day, it's just like permission to try things on for size and see how it feels. And for nursing specifically, we can remember this example. Like a lot of nurses think when they jump ship on their job, the next thing is going to be the thing that makes it all better. And it's like the external changes don't fix the internal misalignment. And so I feel like the last year, even I've gotten so intentional about figuring out like what really lights me up and just taking note of those moments. One thing that I like to do is like every day in my journal, I write like a built to be you moment. And it was actually from the previous day. So like just a moment where I felt like I was in my power, in myself, a thing like something that lit me up. And I think that that's such like a simple first step for somebody who is not sure what their thing is or not sure what tweaks to make. Like just take note of when you do feel engaged or when you do feel lit up. And it can be something as simple as like a patient conversation or an interaction at the grocery store or something that happened during your workout or a moment or a rep. It's like just finding the small moments to really be like, wow, like that's when I felt in, like I felt in it. And you know what that feeling is. So for me, it's been a lot of that. And also asking for the opportunities that you want. I think a lot of times we just think that, oh, well, it doesn't exist, so I can't create it. And for me, I like went to my manager and I was like, listen, I'm a board certified nurse coach. I like to work with nurses outside of the hospital on X, Y, and Z. This is what I do. How can we integrate this into my work here? She's like, do you want to go to the preceptor class and precept? You also make more money for doing that. I was like, bet. Yeah, I would love to. And then so now most of my work at work is precepting new grad nurses, which is a lot of nurses who I work with in my private practice, like entrepreneurship, and also like the health and wellness side of it. I love teaching people to move their body and fall in love with the habits that make them feel good. Can I run this unit-based wellness challenge? Heck yeah. So I think for me, it was just like once you understand what it is that lights you up, just knowing that just because it doesn't exist yet doesn't mean that you can't be the one to create it.
Oh, mic drop. That's so good. Yeah. What a great reminder. Like, because I think
Uh-huh.
a lot of people forget that piece. We're just like, oh, that's not like, it's not there. It doesn't exist. That job isn't there. Like, blah, blah, blah. But like, you're right. You can create it. And the fact that you just like brought your skills to your unit and was like, what can we do with this is such a
Mhm.
beautiful thing and takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of
It
confidence.
It does, and it takes it like a knowing of self too. So I think that's where it comes back to like coming home to yourself and really understanding like who you are, what you value, what lights you up. And it's like that can be really hard to find in a lot of external noise. And I really do think is just like finding stillness in your day to journal or even sit and reflect internally. But I think there's so much power of like pen to paper. And
Mm-hmm.
I love going back to my journal from that first travel nurse assignment and even the last 6 months because it's like, dang, like the evolution of the human is so cool as you just like get to know yourself better. And I think a lot of times it's this disconnect and like one track mindset of like, oh, well, it's bedside or bust. And if I'm at the bedside, I'm going to be miserable. And that's just how it is. And it's like,
Mm.
there's literally like like the what's the word I'm thinking for? I'm like pointing to my head.
Your brain? I'm not the nurse. I don't know anatomy.
It's literally like the neurological wirings in your
Mm.
brains are changing as you are introducing new thoughts and new beliefs. And it's like I'm actually reading this book right now called Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, and it is so good. And it's just such a good reminder of like the science behind like how we rewire our chemistry and our neurons to back up whatever it is that we like want to believe in. And it's really
Mm.
interesting, like he talks a lot about how when our like yes or our tomorrow is created by yesterday. And I just think it's interesting. Like we continue to live in this like turn and burn mindset of like everything's always the same, nothing's gonna change. And it's like that really is debilitating. And it really holds you back from a lot of different things.
Wow. Yeah. That is so interesting to think about, just like what's going on psychologically, too, especially as we make these choices and we step into these seasons. Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. Can we also talk about you as a running coach, what you're training for, what you're doing? And if there's someone listening to this right now who is looking to step into movement a bit more, and especially movement in the field of running, what would be their first steps? Or even if they're like a little bit into it, what would be the best things for them to focus on to like improve their strides?
I love this.
I knew you would.
Uh,
My baby runner over here. I'm like, I'd love to get back into it, and I just haven't laced up my sneakers. So talk to me about
Talk to me about it.
it.
Yeah, man, running, it's like it's about running, it's not about running at all. And I feel like my relationship with running has evolved so much over the last like 2 years. And I think it's just I ran a race in New York City and it like spit me up and threw me out. Or chewed me up and spit me out. That's the
I'm like,
word. I'm
that's a
like,
bad thing, right?
yeah, yeah. It stood me up and spit me out. It was like the worst race ever.
Mm.
And worst race ever in terms of like my mindset and my expectations and just like the disappointment and like the negative self-talk at the end. And after that race, I like made a decision and I was like, it's not about the finish line anymore. Like it's about finding longevity in life and joy in the sport. So that's like a little bit about my, I guess, kind of background of running. I've been running marathons for 7 years now. I just ran my eighth marathon in Houston in January, which was incredible. And I really unlocked like a new belief in myself and a new PR and just like a new athletic ability. And I really do believe that it was my mindset. Everybody's like, what happened? What changed? What changed? And it's like, you just have to believe that you can. And like I think whoever is listening who wants to start running, it's like I truly believe that your body achieves what your mind believes. And so if you tell yourself, I'm not a runner, I can't do it, it's like let's rewrite that narrative and really figure out like, does that actually serve you? And I think a lot of times people who want to start running or people who are newer to running get discouraged because, well, I'm not fast enough. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like, can we unpack that? And like, that is the first conversation I have with every athlete is like, why are you doing this? Like, what are you hoping to feel in the process rather than like just getting to the finish line? And I think that goes with anything. Like, when you're so fixated on the end goal, you forget the person that you become in the process of getting there. And I think that that is the most beautiful part of being a runner is like, you learn so much about yourself. You're literally putting yourself in a position to get uncomfortable and to learn more about your physical and mental capabilities. And it's like when you're out there running, whether it's 20 minutes, 40 minutes, or 40 miles, it's like nobody else is around, chances are. Like it's you versus you, and you get to learn which one you want to show up for, which one you want to choose. So, yeah, I think that maybe answered the question.
Okay, interesting. So it's all about the mindset. You
I
wouldn't
think
say there's
so.
any physical things that I need to focus on before lacing up those
Yeah.
sneakers.
No, I mean, just get out there. I think people get so fixated on like what getting out there looks like. And it's like
Hmm.
right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. It's not about how fast or how well you can do it. And it's like, you're probably going to feel like a stumbly baby deer at first. And like, that's okay. And, of course, there's a lot of other tangible, like, let's talk about having the right shoes and like, let's talk about, not literally hitting the ground running as fast as you can. And I think one thing that a lot of new runners get discouraged by is they're like, well, I can't even run a mile. And it's like, well, how are you trying to run a mile? Let's talk about it. And a lot of times they're just like going as fast as they
Mm.
can and then getting discouraged when they get to a half a mile that they're exhausted. It's like, okay, well, why don't we start with some walk run intervals? The number of athletes that I have that start with walk run intervals before we ever do a straight run is honestly the majority of them. I had an athlete who came to me who was like, I can't even run a mile without stopping or without run walk intervals. And she just ran a sub 2 hour half marathon, like not even six
Amazing.
weeks later. And it was like that mindset shift of yes, you can. You're just trying to tell yourself that it's safer to not even try because you don't want to be seen failing. And I think that's a weird relationship that we have sometimes with failure.
Oh, yeah. And now everybody listening is like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. Michaela
Yeah,
told
you
me I
can.
can, and now I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
I love how you work in miles too. Well, we in Canada, we work in kilometers, so it's shorter than a
Oh,
mile.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, a
it's
mile, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. It's like, let it be what you need it to be. And we are actually, my business partner and I, she's a nurse too. And we just did our first group coaching program called Nurses on the Run. And it's geared towards
mm,
nurses to really figure out how they can, accommodate their busy schedules with nutrition and movement and running and mindset and all the different things. And a lot of nurses who joined that group were called themselves non-runners. And it's been so fun. Like we just had like our 1 month check-in and it's like, I'm a runner now. Like I'm doing it. And so it's just like you just have to engage in the activity to understand what it's going to feel like, if that makes sense.
it does. It does. It makes me want to go lace up my sneakers and get out there, even in the snow,
Yeah,
and like just move. I
just
always
move.
loved like the meditative state of running.
Oh,
Like it just felt
100%.
like meditation.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like the only place in our lives where we like there's nothing else to be doing except for like being where your 2 feet are, literally.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. Do you have a favorite race that you've done?
Oh man, I really loved the Houston Marathon that I just did in January. The course was great. It wasn't like a world marathon major. It's like it wasn't like a really big race, but it was like big enough that there was still quite a few spectators there. But the Chicago Marathon was my first marathon and it has my heart. So uh, I also love that one. It's just a lot. It's a lot bigger race.
Oh, yes. Amazing. I feel like Houston would be nice and warm.
Yeah, it was. Honestly, this race though, like nick of time. Like Sunday morning was like mid 50s, low 50s, and then by Sunday night it was freezing rain and 30s, and then it snowed on Monday, and Houston does not know how to do
No.
snow.
Okay, so perfect timing. I love that for you.
Yeah. I was like, this could have been a drastically different race had it been like even 12 hours later.
Wild. So wild to think that you could have been running a marathon in the freezing rain in Houston.
Yeah, I think I would have sat that one out. I think I would have been like, no, I'm good. Thank you, though.
I feel like you would have done it.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just like, again, and also it's like you just learn how to sit in a discomfort with running. I feel like there's so many like long runs. I don't know. I always tell people like if I could record a podcast while on the run, y'all wouldn't be ready.
I bet
There
you
are just
could.
so many downloads and like life lessons that happen. I'm like, dang, I love this sport.
That'd be such a fun episode.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I like me trying to like
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen to that. Can you
stay tuned.
tell all our listeners who are hanging out with us today where they can connect with you, Michaela?
Yes, you can connect with me on the Built to Be podcast. You can come connect with me over on Instagram at Michaela_Robertson_. We also have the Strides for Strength running account, which is at SFS Runners. And yeah, then we have a Strides for Strength podcast. If you're interested in learning more about running, we talk about running and not about running at all because that's just how life goes. It's
love
about
that.
running and it's not. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. And you work with people all over the US, also Canada, or?
Yeah, we
Cool.
do work with people all over the US. Yeah, we're going to be doing more in-person events over the next couple of months and the next year specifically with running and non-running. So can connect with me.
Amazing. I love that, Michaela. I have a few questions I ask every guest that comes on the podcast.
Okay.
You ready?
I don't know. Am I ready?
I don't know. Are you?
Sure.
What's your favorite compliment to receive?
Oh, man, my favorite compliment to receive. I think it's just like gratitude. Like I'm grateful for you. Like thank you for helping me get here. I don't think there's anything that feels better than like being acknowledged for being a part of somebody's journey.
Yeah, that is nice.
You know, it's wholesome, isn't it? It just like
Yeah.
reminds you. Like I love when you get like a random text or like you read a podcast review or like a DM. It just like, hey, I'm a fly on the wall, but thank you. And I'm like, oh, thank
That's so
goodness.
nice. Yeah. I'm so
Yeah,
grateful for you and for you being here today and hanging out with me.
thank you.
What do you do to boost your mood when you're feeling grumpy?
Mini trampoline dance parties.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. The best Facebook Marketplace purchase I've ever had. $20, and that is the
So
gift that
good.
keeps giving.
So good. And you moved with that too. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, yeah. I had like whatever could fit in my car, made it across the country, and I like had my boyfriend like deconstruct the mini trampoline so it fit in my car to move across the country.
I love that so much. So good. I used to have a mini trampoline and I think we lost it in the move. So it's time to invest in another one.
Yeah, it's got to make the
Or
cut.
or a regular size trampoline.
Oh my God, that would be so fun. Can you imagine like just getting to go on your backyard and like
Yeah.
do flips?
And people would be like, "Oh, where are your kids?" And I'm like, "I don't have any. It's just for me."
It's for me, thank you.
Do you have a song or a quote that boosts your confidence?
Mm. I really love the song. It's called Higher by, I think it's Jai. I can't remember the last name, but that song just like gets me in the feels.
I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard it. I'll have to go look it up.
Yeah. It's on this like, I don't even know what playlist I found it on. It was like a whole like powerhouse playlist. And I just like, I put that song on and I just like feel at home.
And then you jump on your trampoline and you're
Yeah.
feeling good.
Like, show me the way.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Michaela, for being here and spending some time with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
What's up, sis? I am so glad we could hang out today. If you love this episode, send it to a friend or share it on your social media and tag me so I can personally thank you for helping me sprinkle some confidence in the world. And don't forget, you are magic. Let's show the world your shine.